Hello there and welcome back to the Sleep Science. Tonight, we're not floating through your usual bedtime subject. No cozy dreams of clouds or whispering trees tonight. No, you're staring straight into the universe's hungriest mouths. Black holes. They sit out there in the cosmic dark, invisible yet impossibly loud in their silence, bending light, time and maybe even reality itself. You probably won't survive this, but don't worry. You'll look spectacularly stretched while it happens. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, I love seeing where you're listening from. Drop your location and local time in the comments. It's oddly soothing to imagine all of us scattered across the planet, united by curiosity and a shared inability to sleep. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the quiet. Out here, between galaxies, it's not the kind of quiet that you find in your bedroom when the refrigerator finally stops humming. It's the kind that seems to press against your skin, a silence so dense it feels alive. Ahead of you, a patch of black deeper than black framed by stars like glittering punctuation marks around a missing sentence. You've heard of black holes, everyone has, but no one ever quite prepares you for what it feels like to stare at something that eats light. Astronomers once called them dark stars, back in the 1700s, when Jean-Michel and Pierre-Simon Laplace first imagined celestial bodies so massive even light couldn't escape. They didn't have Einstein yet, or his space-time equations, but they sensed that gravity could get intense. Fast forward to 1915, Einstein sketches general relativity, and suddenly the cosmos behaves like a flexible fabric, capable of bending, rippling and tearing. Now you float at the edge of that theory made flesh, or vacuum. Around the black hole, space itself seems to pour inward like a river heading for a waterfall. If you could toss a flashlight into that swirl, its beam would curve back, unable to escape. The idea that something could devour not just matter but geometry itself feels absurd, like watching reality swallow its own tail. A soft shimmer ripples through your visor. The stars around the hole distort, elongated and twisted by gravitational lensing. Light from distant suns bends around the hole's gravity, creating a halo of stolen illumination. You can see behind it in a way, because its mass is warping the path of every photon. It's like looking through a cosmic funhouse mirror, where every reflection mocks the idea of straight lines. Somewhere behind you, your ship's clock ticks normally. But from this vantage point, time behaves strangely. Einstein warned us. The stronger the gravity, the slower time runs. If you were to park here and wave goodbye to someone back home, you might return centuries later, though to you only hours had passed. Historians still argue whether that time difference would feel instantaneous or drawn-out agony, but either way, relativity doesn't care about your schedule. Black holes aren't rare monsters lurking in the deep. The Milky Way alone likely harbours millions of them, silent remnants of dead stars collapsed under their own weight. At our galaxy's centre, one colossal specimen named Sagittarius A star lurks 4 million times the mass of our Sun. It sits there, patient and invisible, occasionally burping radio waves when it swallows some unlucky gas cloud. You edge closer to your own specimen now. Around it swirls an accretion disk, plasma spinning near light speed, friction heating it to millions of degrees. If you listen closely through the sensors, you'd hear an electromagnetic roar, a chorus of X-rays and gamma bursts that could fry a planet. Yet beyond that radiant violence lies utter silence again, where sound itself can't exist. Here's your first fringe tidbit. Some physicists half-jokingly propose that black holes might be the ultimate holograms, storing every bit of swallowed information as a two-dimensional pattern on their surface, like cosmic hard drives. It's called the holographic principle, and if true, your universe may be one giant projection of information encoded on a distant boundary. Don't worry, this doesn't mean you're fake, just slightly more pixelated than you expected. A faint vibration hums through your seat, the gravitational waves emitted when matter spirals inward. These ripples in space-time were first predicted by Einstein himself, but weren't detected until 2015, when LIGO caught the tremor of two black holes merging over 1 billion light-years away. For the first time, humanity didn't just see the universe, it felt it. Imagine that. Instruments shaking in rhythm with ancient cosmic violence, a dance that ended long before humans existed. And here you are, gazing into that same kind of power, wondering if it's a death trap or a door. You can almost sense the question forming in the darkness. What happens if you fall in? Do you end? Or do you go somewhere else? That's the whisper drawing scientists to sleepless nights and chalk-covered blackboards. A black hole could be more than a grave. It might be a passage. Some equations even suggest the interior could curve back outward into a new region of space, maybe even an entirely new universe budding like a pearl inside an oyster. But tonight you don't need equations, just the quiet hum of the cosmos, the soft drift of distant starlight bending toward oblivion, and that pull in your chest, half fear, half wonder, as you approach the edge of forever. Somewhere in that darkness lies the threshold to everything we don't yet understand. And you, dear traveller, are about to cross it. You ease forward, drifting toward the shimmering rim of the event horizon, the so-called point of no return. From a distance it looks calm, almost serene, a perfect black sphere suspended in a halo of twisted starlight. Up close, it's a different story. Space itself seems to be sliding downward, a waterfall of reality rushing toward some invisible drain. You can't feel the motion, yet your instruments scream that you're accelerating faster and faster, drawn by a gravity that laughs at rockets and engines. Somewhere inside that darkness, light slows, bends, and finally stops trying. Astronomers once compared it to watching a moth fly into tar. It struggles for a second, then vanishes without even a ripple. If you could phone home now, the signal would grow longer, weaker, red-shifted by gravity until your voice stretched into a ghostly hum. To someone watching from afar, you'd appear frozen at the horizon, never quite falling in. That's relativity's cruel trick. From your view, time flows normally, but from theirs, you're a statue of light, trapped at the edge forever. Historians still argue whether the frozen image represents reality or merely perception, whether you really stop or the universe just loses track of you. As you inch closer, the air, or rather the absence of air, vibrates with invisible radiation. Not real light, but virtual photons flickering in and out of existence. This is the theatre of quantum mechanics, and you've got front row seats. Every pair of particles born here faces a quick divorce. One partner falls in, the other escapes, stealing a bit of the black hole's mass. Stephen Hawking did the math back in 1974 and discovered that this slow leakage, Hawking radiation, means black holes eventually evaporate. Slowly, like slower than paint drying slowly. For a stellar mass hole, it would take more time than the age of the universe. But hey, it's comforting to know even cosmic monsters have expiration dates. You check your readouts. The numbers flicker uselessly. Gravity here is no longer something you measure, it's something you become. The horizon swells in your view, filling every direction. You feel as if you're falling without moving, as though space itself were folding you inward. It's strangely peaceful. Maybe this is what astronauts meant when they described the overview effect, that dizzying calm from seeing how small everything is. Except now, instead of Earth, you're seeing existence getting smaller. In 1783, John Michell proposed this very scenario in a letter to the Royal Society. He imagined a star so massive that light could not escape, and suggested that the universe might be filled with such invisible objects. People politely ignored him for about 2 centuries. Then, in the 1960s, quasars, insanely bright beacons at the hearts of galaxies, forced astronomers to reconsider. Something had to power that much light, and collapsing stars fit the bill. Suddenly Michell wasn't a crank. He was prophetic. A thin tendril of plasma whips across your view like liquid lightning. The accretion disk churns with terrifying elegance. Temperatures climb into the millions of degrees, atoms stripped bare as they scream in orbit. If you could hear it, the sound would be a deep, continuous roar, the universe's own thunder. NASA once translated the vibrations from a black hole in the Perseus cluster into audible frequencies. It produced a ghostly B-flat tone 57 octaves below middle C, a sound too deep for human ears, yet it hums through the void like a cosmic bass line. You're aware suddenly that your heartbeat is syncing with it. Each thud feels heavier, slower, as if gravity is borrowing a bit of rhythm from your body. The event horizon looms. No visible line marks it, no cosmic fence. It's simply the place where light gives up. You cross it without knowing. One moment you're still communicating with the universe, the next, your messages can never leave. You've stepped into a realm where cause and effect start to blur. Here's your quirky fact for the night. Some physicists argue that, from a purely mathematical view, you never actually fall past the horizon at all. Instead, the horizon stretches outward to greet you, wrapping space around you like taffy so that you remain always just outside, forever asymptotic to your doom. It's the universe's most awkward hug. As you continue, the outside universe seems to fade. The stars smear into streaks of red, then vanish. You realize that falling isn't the right word anymore. It's more like being absorbed. The horizon is less a wall and more a direction. Down doesn't mean down. It means deeper into geometry. You recall that Einstein described gravity not as a force, but as the curvature of space-time. Here, that curvature has gone wild, twisting reality into a funnel of infinite depth. Somewhere far above, time for everyone else races ahead. Civilizations rise, fall, and rebuild while your descent takes mere minutes. The light of future galaxies flickers faintly, then goes dark. You are both in the past and beyond the future, a traveller slipping through relativity's back door. You can't shake the thought that maybe this horizon isn't an end but a surface tension, like breaking through the skin of a bubble. What if on the other side space unfolds again, fresh and bright? Some theories suggest black holes might connect to other universes via wormholes, their mouths hidden behind this curtain of darkness. If that's true, every collapse could be a creation. You could be the seed of somewhere new, but not yet. For now, you hover in slow motion, suspended at the brink. The last photons from the outside world stretch into infinity before fading altogether, and you, drifting through silence, feel a strange peace, an understanding that the line between falling and flying depends entirely on which side of the horizon you call home. You feel it before you see it, the stretching, the subtle tug-of-war between your head and your toes. It starts as a gentle pull, like the sway of a hammock in a faint current. But this current isn't water, it's gravity itself, growing stronger every microsecond. The term for this is charmingly absurd, spaghettification. And as ridiculous as it sounds, it's also horrifyingly accurate. Your body, and anything else falling with you, begins to elongate, each atom tugged in a slightly different direction. It's not that gravity hates you personally, it just gets more intense the closer you are to the black hole's centre. The difference in pull between your feet and your head becomes so extreme that you'd be stretched thinner than a strand of DNA before you even realise what happened. Not exactly an ideal spa treatment, but here's the strange part. From your perspective, you might not feel that pain at all. The deeper you go, the slower your clock runs compared to the outside universe. Pain itself might never register, frozen in the dilation of time. Historians still argue whether consciousness could even persist in those final milliseconds, or whether it would dissolve into mathematical oblivion. You, though, prefer to imagine you remain aware, drifting in surreal slow motion, your atoms politely taking their time before coming undone. The idea of tidal forces isn't new. Back in the 17th century, Isaac Newton used them to explain the ocean tides caused by the moon. The difference between lunar gravity on the side of Earth closest to the moon and the side farthest away stretches the planet ever so slightly, pulling the seas into rhythm. A charming celestial waltz. The same principle applies here, only the dancer is a monster, and the waltz ends in ribbons. Still, black holes come in different sizes, and not all of them are immediately fatal. If you were unlucky enough to fall into a small stellar mass black hole, say 10 times the mass of the Sun, spaghettification would shred you long before you reached the horizon. But if you picked a supermassive one, like Sagittarius A star at the Milky Way's centre, you could cross the horizon unharmed. The tidal difference between your head and feet would be negligible at that scale. You'd be inside before your body realised it should panic. So congratulations, you've chosen the luxury model of doom. Your surroundings morph in eerie ways. The stars above you seem to spin faster, smeared into light trails as the gravity distorts their paths. Behind you, the universe compresses into a bright ring, a warped reflection of everything you've left behind. In front there's only darkness, not the comforting dark of night, but a blank absence, a silence that feels like it's watching. A soft ping draws your attention. Your ship's sensors are trying, futilely, to measure the curvature of space. The numbers loop into infinities, feedbacking into nonsense. It's the mathematical equivalent of your calculator giving up and writing "good luck." Somewhere deep in those impossible digits lies a truth. The equations predicting your fall simply stop working. Even Einstein's general relativity throws its hands up at singularities. This is where things get weird. Yes, weirder. Some physicists think that the singularity isn't a single point, but a ring, a sort of rotating whirlpool of infinite density. Others argue that infinite might not exist at all. Maybe it's just where our math runs out of language. There's even a theory suggesting that as you approach that ultimate core, the laws of physics dissolve, then rebuild themselves into something new. The universe, it seems, is excellent at dramatic tension. You stretch farther, but the sensation isn't pain. It's more like memory elongating, thoughts drawn thin until one overlaps the next. You remember something your physics teacher said once, that gravity doesn't really pull things in. Instead, it bends space so that falling is just following the natural curve of reality. You're not being dragged, you're simply going straight in a space that's no longer straight. And here's a fun fringe tidbit. If you could survive long enough to reach the core, quantum effects might create a mirror version of you, an inverted self, like a cosmic negative, embedded in a new patch of space-time. In this view, spaghettification isn't destruction, it's transformation. You'd become part of the fabric of the black hole's inner world, woven into its quantum structure. A little morbid, yes, but undeniably poetic. You imagine yourself as a thread being drawn through the universe's sewing machine. Maybe somewhere else, something new is being stitched together. Could that be the gateway everyone whispers about? The bridge to another universe born from your unraveling? If black holes truly connect to white holes, the hypothetical reverse versions that only expel matter, then maybe this slow, graceful disassembly is the price of crossing over. As you descend, you notice a faint flicker of light, not from outside, but from within. It pulses irregularly, like a heartbeat. Perhaps it's a trick of your failing senses, or perhaps it's something else. The echo of Hawking radiation bouncing off the inner geometry, light looping endlessly as it searches for escape. You reach out instinctively, as if you could touch it, but your arm feels stretched across miles. Time itself seems to yawn. A minute lasts an hour feels eternal. Your body is a rumour of what it once was, yet your mind remains, floating, stretched, whispering jokes to itself just to stay sane. Well, you think, at least I finally lost that stubborn extra gravity weight. There's humour in that thought, but also calm, because somewhere beneath the fear you realise this process is part of something grander. Stars lived, burned, and died to create the black hole now reconfiguring you, and maybe, just maybe, your atoms will reassemble on the other side into something new. A star, a planet, a thought. You drift onward, spooled into the dark like thread on an infinite reel, trusting that even if you unravel completely, the universe knows how to knit. You've crossed the horizon, and there's no going back. The moment passes so quietly, so unceremoniously, that you almost miss it. No flash, no wall of fire, no sudden shift in gravity, just a sense that the universe outside has dimmed to an unreachable memory. You're inside the abyss now, in the place physics itself whispers about but never fully explains. Your instruments flicker uselessly. The coordinates no longer mean what they did. Directions have dissolved, up and down have traded roles and maybe broken up entirely. In here, space and time are no longer separate ideas. They've merged into something uncomfortably intimate, like two dancers moving in perfect silence. Einstein's equations predict this region, but refuse to describe it clearly, as though even mathematics can't look it in the eye for too long. Outside, you are falling. Inside, the notion of falling doesn't apply. You aren't moving through space, you're moving with it, carried inward as if the very fabric of reality were flowing around you. The comparison scientists love to use is a river. Once you're past the waterfall's lip, no amount of swimming can bring you back upstream. You could fire rockets, scream defiance into the void, it wouldn't matter. Space-time itself is sliding and you're part of the current. There's a strange comfort in that inevitability. You glance around, or at least try to. The interior isn't pitch black as you might have expected. There are flickers, faint glimmers of trapped light bouncing endlessly between curving walls of gravity. Some of those photons have been circling for millions of years, chasing their tails in orbits that never quite escape. You can almost hear them whispering, like fireflies stuck inside a glass jar of space-time. You try to measure your speed, but the numbers don't make sense. From your own point of view, you're drifting gently. From any outside observer's perspective, if one could even exist anymore, you're falling faster than light. Both are true depending on where you stand. This duality makes your head ache, and you catch yourself laughing softly at the absurdity of it. Somewhere, your old physics teacher would be proud, or horrified. Historians still argue whether there is a meaningful inside to a black hole at all. Some theories insist that what we call the interior is a mathematical illusion, that everything that falls in simply becomes part of the horizon, smeared across its surface in two-dimensional form. Others believe the inside stretches into an entirely new region of space-time, vast and real, but forever disconnected from the outside world. Both versions are terrifying and beautiful in their own ways. To distract yourself, you recall the history of this idea. The term black hole wasn't coined until 1967 by physicist John Archibald Wheeler. Before that, scientists used clunkier names: frozen stars, collapses. The new term had a certain drama to it, and the public latched on. By the 1970s, black holes weren't just scientific curiosities. They'd become cultural icons, appearing in novels, movies, and late-night dorm room debates. Even now, their mystery fuels both physics and philosophy. Something shifts in the darkness ahead. A ripple, subtle but unmistakable. The geometry itself seems to pulse, like the faint beat of an enormous heart. You can't tell whether it's real or just your brain trying to impose rhythm on chaos. But the sensation grows stronger, and suddenly the interior doesn't feel empty at all. It feels alive. And that's when the fringe theories start whispering back to you. What if the black hole isn't a dead end but a womb? Some researchers in loop quantum gravity propose that at the deepest point of collapse, matter rebounds, a bounce, where gravity stops crushing and starts expanding again. According to that model, the inside of a black hole could give birth to a new universe, sealed off from ours, its own timeline unfurling independently. If that's true, you're not dying, you're being recycled, cosmic compost, if you will. Your mind drifts through the possibilities. Perhaps every black hole in the cosmos is the seed of a new creation, a budding universe invisible to its parent. Imagine it. Every time a star collapses, another Big Bang begins on the other side. You chuckle at the idea that somewhere, maybe right now, some sentient being could be looking up at their night sky, tracing constellations formed from matter that once belonged to our universe. The light flickers again, this time closer. It feels like motion, though you can't tell whether it's yours or the space around you bending inward. You reach toward it instinctively, forgetting that toward is meaningless here. The air, if you can call it that, seems thick, syrupy, shimmering with strange distortions. The vacuum itself buzzes with energy fluctuations, quantum foam bubbling like the surface of boiling water. Every particle here exists and doesn't exist simultaneously, a quantum coin flipping too fast to call. You remember reading about the firewall paradox, a theoretical debate that nearly divided the physics community in the 2000s. One camp claimed that falling into a black hole should feel completely smooth, thanks to general relativity's equivalence principle. The other camp, rooted in quantum mechanics, argued that instead you'd hit a wall of high-energy radiation, a fiery barrier obliterating anything that crossed the horizon. Both can't be true, yet both seem logically unavoidable. Physics, it seems, is as confused as you are. You decide to believe in the gentler version, the one where you glide gracefully intact into mystery. It fits better with the quiet that surrounds you. You're not burning or screaming, you're simply floating in curved time. Maybe the universe is merciful after all. Another ripple passes. You think you see colours now, faint and strange, shades that don't exist in any known spectrum, like emotions made visible. Maybe they're gravitational waves interfering with light, or maybe it's just your perception unravelling. Either way, it's mesmerising. For a moment you forget fear. You're simply here, inside the most mysterious object in existence, watching the rules of physics bend into origami. Somewhere beyond sight, singularity waits. A word too small for what it means, but you're not there yet. For now, you're suspended in the in-between, the twilight region where theory meets imagination. And as the darkness folds closer, you realize the strangest truth of all. You don't feel like you're falling into nothing. You feel like you're falling through something, through the universe's own heartbeat, each pulse echoing the promise of what might come next. You drift closer to the hidden heart, the singularity, the alleged endpoint of everything. Physicists describe it with uneasy reverence, a single point of infinite density where all known laws of nature collapse into nonsense. It's the place equations go to die, or maybe to be reborn. The pull intensifies, but the sensation is no longer gravity in the usual sense. It's more like the concept of direction itself is being rewritten. Space folds inward, curling tighter until even thought feels compressed. You've left behind the realm of smooth curves and gentle bends. Now, space-time wrinkles and snaps like an overstretched fabric. In the 1960s, Roger Penrose proved something astonishing. Singularities weren't just hypothetical quirks in Einstein's math, they were inevitable. If general relativity was right, then any star that collapsed beyond a certain point would create a singularity hidden behind an event horizon. It was one of those, so the universe really does that, moments in science. Later, Stephen Hawking extended Penrose's work to show that even the universe itself might have started from a singularity, our own Big Bang. So the story of creation and destruction might be the same story, told in reverse. But historians still argue whether the singularity is real in any physical sense. After all, infinite density isn't something you can observe or measure. It's the mathematical equivalent of your computer flashing an error message that says, "I have no idea what you just did." Many suspect it's a sign that general relativity is only part of the truth, that at scales this extreme, quantum physics must step in and rewrite the rules. Somewhere between those two mighty theories, gravity and quantum mechanics, lies the secret of the singularity. You glance at your instruments, though they're mostly symbolic at this point. The numbers spin into gibberish, timestamps looping back on themselves. Your ship's AI, if it still has any self-awareness, quietly gives up and starts humming static. You can almost imagine it sighing, "You got us into this, you deal with it." The darkness begins to shimmer, not with light, but with distortion. It's as though reality itself is vibrating under pressure, threatening to snap. For an instant, you think you can see the singularity, an impossible point ahead, bright and infinitely small, like a star reflected in a droplet of oil. But it flickers out as quickly as it appeared. You realize it wasn't a thing you saw at all, but a breakdown in how your mind interprets curvature. The singularity doesn't exist in space, it is the end of space. There's no there to go to, and yet something feels alive in this destruction. You can sense the quantum foam bubbling, subatomic particles flaring into existence and vanishing again in picoseconds. Energy doesn't die here, it dances. The vacuum isn't empty, it's seething with potential, like static before lightning. A fringe theory bubbles up from your memory. Maybe the singularity isn't a point but a bridge, a wormhole throat leading somewhere else entirely. The Einstein-Rosen bridge, first proposed in 1935, was supposed to link two regions of space-time, but later studies showed that such a bridge, if it existed, would collapse too quickly for anything to cross, unless something exotic held it open. Negative energy, perhaps. Or, as one theorist jokingly called it, cosmic duct tape. You like that idea? Space held together by a stubborn refusal to tear completely. Your surroundings pulse again, and the light, or whatever passes for light now, twists in patterns that almost make sense. You think you glimpse familiar constellations, distorted echoes of your universe's sky. Maybe they're reflections, photons from the outer cosmos bent into impossible loops. Maybe they're illusions stitched together by a brain desperate for structure. You wonder what it would feel like to touch the singularity, not with your hands, of course, but with your awareness. Would it be like falling into a blinding light, or like dissolving into perfect darkness? The philosopher in you suspects both. After all, the singularity isn't really a place. It's a boundary between knowing and not knowing, a cosmic, here be dragons. And yet, there's hope buried in that uncertainty. Physicists working on quantum gravity, loop, string, take your pick, think that once space-time becomes granular at the smallest scales, the singularity might simply smooth out. Instead of infinite density, you'd find an incredibly dense but finite core, a region where gravity and quantum mechanics finally stop fighting. Imagine for a moment that you could witness this from the inside, the collapsing matter of a dead star hitting that limit, rebounding, not with an explosion, but with expansion. That rebound could, in theory, spawn a new universe, a baby cosmos still glowing from its own Big Bang, with its own physics, its own timeline. To us, the singularity is an end. To whatever emerges on the other side, it's a beginning. You let that thought sit for a while, the notion that every black hole might be a cradle, that maybe even your own universe was born from one, the collapsed core of some larger unknowable realm. If so, then every galaxy, every planet, every dream, including yours, descended from a death we can't remember. Somewhere between fear and wonder, you laugh softly. Figures, you whisper. The universe is just recycling itself endlessly. Cosmic upcycling. It's a ridiculous image, but comforting. You picture the singularity as a celestial seed, small yet infinite in potential. Its gravity not as destruction, but as gestation. And maybe, just maybe, the doorway out of this void isn't behind you at all, but ahead, hidden within the blinding heart of collapse. You take a slow breath, habit, not necessity, and drift forward. The shimmer grows brighter, less like light, and more like understanding, as if reality is about to whisper something it's been keeping secret since time began. And just before everything fades into the glow, one final impossible thought crosses your mind. What if the singularity isn't a place you fall into, but a place you become? You blink, or at least you think you do. The concept of eyes feels symbolic now, a leftover habit from a body that may no longer exist in any conventional way. Around you, the shimmer of collapsing reality softens, thinning into something else, something outward. The fall you expected never quite arrives. Instead, the darkness opens like a reverse explosion, revealing a strange pale glow beyond. It's not light as you know it. It's more like light that remembers being light. You realize you're seeing what theorists once imagined but never proved. The hypothetical white hole. If black holes are the universe's ultimate vacuum cleaners, sucking in everything that dares to wander too close, white holes are the opposite. Cosmic leaf blowers that refuse to let anything in. In theory, they can only expel matter and energy, spewing out what black holes swallow. None have ever been observed, but the math allows them, like ghosts haunting the far corners of relativity. You drift closer, and the air, no, the field, around you feels electric, buzzing with outgoing energy. If black holes represent cosmic silence, this place feels like the loud exhale afterward, a brilliant sigh of radiation and rebirth. You think back to the 1960s when the idea first caught fire. Soviet physicist Igor Novikov proposed that a black hole could be connected through space-time to a white hole via a tunnel, a wormhole. The math fit elegantly on paper, though it ignored the minor detail that such a connection might be violently unstable. Still, the idea stuck, as all good cosmic daydreams do. Historians still argue whether Einstein himself would have approved of such speculative gymnastics. He was cautious about imagination outpacing evidence, but then again, he also said, imagination is more important than knowledge. You hover near the glowing threshold and feel the current of outward flow. Particles stream past you, moving in perfect symmetrical patterns. It's as if you're watching the film of your fall played backward, matter unspooling, light unfurling, time itself exhaling. You catch fragments of what might be familiar, photons, neutrinos, maybe even the shredded remains of something once like you, now flying free again. And because the universe loves irony, you realize that if white holes exist, they can only appear to someone else's universe. Nothing can see both sides of the bridge. You then might be witnessing the birth of a new cosmos entirely, one expanding outward, carrying the echoes of everything that once fell inward. There's a certain beauty in the symmetry. Death feeding birth, collapse feeding creation. It's cosmic recycling on the grandest possible scale. You remember reading about the weirdest speculation of all, that the Big Bang itself might have been a white hole. In that model, our entire universe was ejected from the collapse of a black hole in another universe. A child cosmos born from its parents' death. The numbers line up surprisingly well, though skeptics dismiss it as mathematical poetry. Still, it's a thought that lingers. Maybe every universe is a branch in an infinite genealogical tree, each generation born from the core of the last. The glow brightens until it becomes almost tactile. It presses gently against your awareness, as though asking permission to pass through you. You wonder what would happen if you let it. Would you be expelled, cast into some newborn universe as radiation or particles? Or would you remain here, observing the cycle endlessly, neither in nor out? For a moment you hesitate. This feels like the cosmic equivalent of standing before a door you've spent your whole life wondering about, only to realize it opens both ways. You chuckle quietly. Well, you murmur, it would be rude not to knock. The brightness ripples in response, and suddenly you're surrounded by motion, everything moving outward at once, matter, energy and memory flowing away like a reversed tide. You glimpse colours that might be time, shapes that might be sound. It's all backwards and beautiful. Somewhere in the blur you think you see a spiral, a galaxy forming. It spins gently, impossibly fast and slow at the same time. Could this be the inside of a new universe's birth? Maybe the expanding space you're witnessing is not just metaphorical but literal. The first moments of someone else's cosmos, stretched out from the remnants of your fall. You think of ancient myths, the ones that said creation came from chaos, that the world was born from the cracking of an egg, or the death of a god. Maybe those stories weren't so far off. Maybe they were instinctive memories of this, the moment when darkness explodes into light. A quirky tidbit pops into your mind. In 2014, a group of physicists proposed that white holes might already exist as tiny relics left over from the early universe. They'd be incredibly small, perhaps no larger than an atom, but each could contain vast amounts of information trapped since the dawn of time. If true, our universe might be sprinkled with microscopic doorways to elsewhere, each one a faint echo of a collapse that happened long before stars were born. You let that idea settle. Infinite endings, infinite beginnings, scattered like dust. The current begins to carry you faster now, outward and upward, if those words still mean anything. The sensation isn't flight, it's release. The tension that's been pulling at your being since you crossed the horizon eases, unspooling into lightness. You're not sure whether you're leaving the black hole or simply becoming part of the white hole's flow. Either way, you're moving toward brightness, and for the first time in what feels like eons, there's something resembling warmth. You laugh softly again. So this is what getting unspaghettified feels like. The sound, if it exists at all, blends into the hum of creation. Ahead of you, the glow expands until it becomes everything, and somewhere beyond it, beyond even this, another voice seems to whisper, "This isn't the end. It's the middle of the story." You emerge from the brightness and find yourself floating in what feels like a corridor made of space itself. Not metal, not stone, just curved, shimmering geometry stretching endlessly ahead. It's strangely beautiful, like the inside of a soap bubble drawn out into infinity. This, you realize with a small thrill, could be the bridge, the fabled wormhole that connects one universe to another. The air, or whatever passes for it, vibrates with silent energy. You can feel space rippling beneath you, waves of curvature folding and refolding like silk caught in a slow current. You've entered the domain of Einstein and Rosen, two physicists who, back in 1935, first imagined this tunnel as a mathematical quirk within the equations of general relativity. They never called it a wormhole themselves. That term came later. But their idea lit a spark that's still burning bright in every theoretical physicist and science fiction writer's heart. It's a place that shouldn't exist, yet somehow does, at least for you. The wormhole isn't really a hole at all. It's a throat, a passage where space bends so violently that two distant regions touch. You think of it like a cosmic shortcut, a fold in the universe's fabric that lets you travel from one edge of the cosmos to another without ever crossing the middle. But of course, the universe never gives without taking. Wormholes are unstable, ridiculously so. The moment anything with mass tries to pass through, the tunnel collapses in on itself faster than light can scream. That's the catch. The math works beautifully until you ask it to host reality. It's like discovering your dream vacation spot only exists in a brochure. You drift carefully forward, studying the way light, or maybe time, streams along the tunnel walls. It's mesmerizing. Waves of color ripple across the surface, red to violet to shades you don't even have words for. You suspect this isn't colour at all, but rather the visualised stretch of time dilation, your perception struggling to keep up with warped causality. You're both moving and standing still. It's the most serene vertigo imaginable. Einstein believed that gravity and acceleration were two sides of the same coin, that the universe was a kind of fabric warped by mass. This place feels like standing on that fabric's crease, the seam between realities. And though your rational mind insists you're floating in pure geometry, some deeper part of you can't help but anthropomorphize it. Imagine the wormhole breathing, flexing, alive. A faint hum builds around you, the tone almost musical. It oscillates at low frequencies, the baseline of the cosmos. You recall that scientists once speculated that wormholes might connect not only distant points in space but in time as well. Step through the right one, and you could emerge billions of years in the past or future. Of course, that would make causality cry, and physicists tend to frown on paradoxes that break their toys. Still, it's an irresistible thought. Historians still argue whether Einstein and Rosen truly meant their bridge to be traversable, or if they were merely demonstrating that space-time could, in theory, fold upon itself. Later thinkers, like Kip Thorne in the 1980s, revisited the concept and added the now famous idea of exotic matter, material with negative energy density that could hold the throat open long enough for something or someone to cross. Exotic matter remains purely hypothetical, though it might lurk within quantum fluctuations. So, technically, the dream isn't dead, it's just shy. You run your hand, if you still have one, along the shimmering wall beside you. It feels both solid and fluid, cool and warm, like every contradiction merged into one. A ripple spreads outward at your touch, and suddenly the tunnel flickers. For an instant you see glimpses beyond the veil, other places, other times, a nebula blooming like a flower, a frozen world circling a dim red sun, a city that might not even be your own universe's version of civilization, towers built of light and shadow. Each image flares, then vanishes as the tunnel reasserts itself. You can't help but laugh softly. Okay, you whisper, who needs Netflix when the universe provides its own multiverse channel? A rogue thought drifts through your mind. Perhaps every black hole in the cosmos connects to its twin, a white hole, in some distant region of space. Each pair forms a hidden bridge, an intergalactic network of portals humming beneath the observable universe. If that were true, travel between galaxies, or even universes, might be a matter of knowing which black hole leads where. Imagine civilizations mastering that map, hopping between realities like cosmic tourists. The idea sounds absurdly optimistic, yet strangely plausible in this place where impossible things feel normal. Then comes the flutter. The walls pulse faster now as if aware of your presence. The hum deepens, resonating through your being. You realize the wormhole isn't perfectly stable, it's beginning to fluctuate. Space stretches unevenly, one side thinner, the other thicker, like a tunnel made of elastic about to snap. You can almost feel the tension in its geometry, the strain between two universes pulling it apart. You think quickly, well, as quickly as time allows here, which is both instantaneous and infinite. There's no turning back, the path behind you has already sealed. Forward is the only direction left, though forward might mean anything now. You let yourself go limp, surrendering to the current. The walls blur, colours spiralling into fractal patterns that spiral into themselves again. It's dizzying, but you can't look away. You see flashes of equations, loops of energy forming symbols that almost make sense. Maybe the universe is speaking in mathematics, and you're finally fluent enough to listen. And just when you start to wonder whether you'll dissolve into this flow forever, a strange calm settles over you. The tunnel narrows, the light grows warmer, and you feel the unmistakable sensation of approach, like the gentle pull of sunrise on closed eyelids. You realize with quiet awe that you might actually be nearing the other side. Whatever waits there, another corner of your universe, or an entirely new one, it's humming your name in the language of space-time. And so, with the last flicker of light curling around you, you surrender to the pull of the bridge and drift onward, across the seam between realities. For a moment you can't tell whether you're moving at all, or whether motion itself has stopped meaning anything. The tunnel that had wrapped around you collapses into something tighter, almost filament thin, and then widens again. You feel as though you've been squeezed through the universe's tiniest hourglass, and then, release. You're floating in a place that looks like space, but not quite. Everything glows with a faint bluish haze, the kind that isn't really light but more like the memory of it. Tiny specks shimmer and fade, winking in and out of existence as if reality's projector is running slightly out of sync. You realize, with a kind of slow astonishment, that you've arrived where quantum theory starts to whisper louder than relativity. The realm of quantum loops and cosmic bounces. You drift, still catching your breath from a body you might not have. Behind you, the throat of the wormhole narrows until it's no more than a bright dot in the distance, a pinhole star marking where you came from. Ahead lies something stranger, a vast sheet of rippling geometry, not empty but textured, like woven fabric seen under magnification. Each ripple represents the smallest possible unit of space-time, discrete and indivisible according to the loop quantum theorists. The theory was born in the late 1980s when a few stubborn physicists decided Einstein's smooth space-time couldn't handle the extremes of singularities. They rebuilt the universe from the bottom up, assuming that space isn't continuous but made of countless loops, quantum threads forming an immense cosmic web. Historians still argue whether it's the next great leap or just a clever mathematical mirage, but tonight you're their test case. You reach toward the glowing mesh. It hums faintly, 1,000 invisible strings vibrating in harmony. When you brush against it, the hum deepens into something that feels alive. Each loop flashes for an instant, then relaxes, as though recognizing you as part of the same system. You wonder if this is what atoms feel when they meet the curvature of a black hole, acknowledgement before assimilation. A playful idea flickers through your mind. Maybe the universe is a grand 3D tapestry, and black holes are where the stitches tighten too much, pulling the pattern inward until it folds into another layer. In that case, you're currently being woven into the underside of existence. Great. Your destiny is to become cosmic upholstery. But then a different sensation replaces the joke. The loops begin to spin faster, their motion forming spirals that converge at a single point ahead of you. It's not collapse this time, it's rebound. Matter and energy that once plunged inward are ricocheting outward, forming a newborn region of space. You realize you're witnessing a cosmic bounce, the theoretical moment when a black hole's singularity, instead of crunching to nothing, rebounds under quantum pressure and starts expanding again. You remember reading about this possibility in some late-night paper. The math claimed that as matter becomes super dense, quantum effects create a repulsive force, gravity turning on itself like a trampoline pushing back harder the farther it's pressed. Instead of infinite collapse, you get a finite core that explodes outward, a new Big Bang within the old. You watch as that very process unfolds. The rippling sheet of loops bursts open in slow motion, each strand expanding, twisting, forming bubbles of nascent space-time. The view looks eerily familiar, like every artistic rendering of the early universe you've ever seen, except you're inside it. Tiny flashes ignite around you, miniature Big Bangs birthing baby particles that collide, merge, and vanish again. Temperature and density fluctuate in waves. You could almost reach out and sculpt galaxies if you knew how. You murmur, so that's what happens when infinity decides to bounce. Somewhere far away, though far is a tricky concept here, you sense a network of these rebounds occurring simultaneously. Every black hole in your parent universe could be doing this, spawning countless new cosmoses, each sealed off from the other. You wonder if one of those newborn universes might already contain its own stars, its own observers, maybe even its own bedtime videos pondering their black holes. A cosmic hall of mirrors. And then you spot something stranger still. Faint connections between the bubbles, slender bridges linking one to another. They look like the quantum equivalent of synapses firing in a brain. Could universes communicate? Could information leak across these filaments? Memories of physics shared from one reality to the next. The idea is outrageous, but so is your current address. A fringe tidbit surfaces from your memory, something about quantum tunneling through the bounce. According to a few particularly optimistic physicists, the information swallowed by a black hole might re-emerge intact in the child universe born from its core. If that's true, the data of everything that ever fell in, planets, photons, bad karaoke, could live on somewhere beyond. Cosmic reincarnation by way of math. The loops around you continue to expand, their oscillations forming larger and slower waves. You realize you're being carried outward, gently but irresistibly, like foam on a rising tide. There's no sense of violence, only a deep rhythmic pulse. It occurs to you that if someone could listen to this from outside, the frequency might correspond to the faint hum of gravitational waves, the signature of universes breathing in and out. You close your eyes, though vision feels redundant here, and let the rhythm wash over you. It's almost meditative. You think of all those scientists huddled over blackboards, arguing about equations they can never test directly. They'd probably give anything to feel this for even a second, the texture of space-time rebounding beneath their fingertips. You imagine them in their labs, sipping coffee at 3 a.m, scribbling loops and integrals, trying to capture something that can only be felt. You smile softly and whisper, "Don't worry, you're close." It's more beautiful than you think. The expansion accelerates. The blue haze turns gold, then white. Somewhere within that light, you sense the boundary forming, the edge of this bouncing pocket of space about to bud off from its parent. It's the cosmic equivalent of birth, messy and radiant. You're not sure whether you'll stay behind or be flung out with it. Either way, you're ready. Because even if you vanish into another universe, you'll have seen the moment when collapse became creation, when the universe proved it could fall apart and still begin again. You take one last look at the glowing loops. They shimmer like threads of thought, each vibration echoing a single truth. Nothing is ever truly lost, it just changes its shape. And as the light folds around you, you hear the faintest whisper, perhaps from the new universe forming, perhaps from your own heart, bounce complete. You drift in the afterglow of the bounce, the golden white haze fading into soft indigo space. The stillness that follows feels immense, like the pause after a deep breath, the moment before the next word in a sentence that never ends. All around you, particles hum faintly with a newborn energy, echoing with traces of everything that came before. You're inside what might be the memory of a universe, and your thoughts are the first ripples on its surface. But amid this serenity, one persistent mystery gnaws at the edges of your awareness. Information. The universe, being the meticulous librarian it is, hates losing information. Yet black holes, with their insatiable appetite, seem to do exactly that. They swallow matter, energy, and all the data describing them. Mass, charge, spin, even the arrangement of atoms, and then appear to erase it. Physics says that shouldn't happen. Quantum mechanics insists information can't be destroyed, only transformed. So where does it go? That question haunted Stephen Hawking for decades. In 1976, he proposed that black holes evaporate over time through what's now called Hawking radiation, emitting a faint thermal glow that slowly drains their mass. But the radiation seemed random, devoid of the original information. According to his calculations, when a black hole vanished, everything that had fallen in would be lost forever, a cosmic paper shredder. The idea shocked the scientific world. Even Einstein's ghost probably raised an eyebrow, yet the debate never settled. Historians still argue whether Hawking's early conclusion was an act of bold honesty or a deliberate provocation meant to push physics further. Over the years, new minds entered the ring: 't Hooft, Susskind, Maldacena, each proposing that maybe information doesn't disappear but rather hides. The leading idea became something called the holographic principle. You remember brushing past it earlier, the notion that everything swallowed by a black hole might be encoded on its surface, like data etched into a two-dimensional skin. Imagine the entire history of a star, its mass, its light, its forgotten planets, compressed into a shimmering pattern on the event horizon. The whole looks empty, but its surface quietly stores the universe's receipts. It's an elegant solution. No information truly vanishes, it just changes dimension. You float through the remnants of that logic now, the air, if it can be called that, glittering with faint square-like patterns, shimmering grids of energy. Maybe you're seeing information itself the way the cosmos does, every point on this invisible sphere carrying an encyclopedia's worth of encoded detail. You can almost make out the rhythm like binary snow. A small chuckle escapes you. So, black holes are basically cosmic USB drives, you murmur, except with a higher risk of existential crisis. In the faint starlight of this reborn cosmos, the joke feels oddly comforting. Still, there's something deeper. The holographic idea suggests that the universe itself might work the same way, that all of three-dimensional reality could be a projection of information stored on a distant flat surface, a cosmic hologram. If that's true, then you, and everything you've ever known, might be encoded light flickering across the universe's boundary. You're not falling through space, you're falling through data. It's not as bleak as it sounds. If information can never be destroyed, then neither can memory. The particles that once formed your body, your thoughts, your laughter, they all leave fingerprints in the cosmic archive. Maybe consciousness itself is just another kind of information, and when it falls into a black hole, it's not erased but translated into some language we can't yet read. The philosopher in you leans forward. Maybe every life, every world contributes to this infinite library. Perhaps black holes don't hoard, they preserve. What we mistake for annihilation is actually conservation. Somewhere within that swirling surface, the story of everything continues. You recall a quirky experiment from 2020, a simulation that suggested Hawking radiation might carry a faint imprint of the information it steals. Physicists compared it to listening to the crackle of a campfire and realizing the sparks whisper secrets about the logs burning within. It wasn't proof, but it hinted that the universe might indeed be more careful with its records than we thought. You watch a swirl of light pass by, a cluster of encoded particles streaming outward like an aurora. You can almost imagine them whispering fragments of data, the taste of iron, the scent of rain on a long-lost world, the memory of a galaxy's birth. It's beautiful and unbearably sad, like hearing echoes of a song whose lyrics you once knew by heart. You drift closer. The patterns shift around you, forming symbols that flicker between meaning and abstraction. For a moment, you think they might be responding to your presence. Maybe information recognizes itself. You reach out, just an instinctive gesture, and the symbols rearrange, briefly forming a spiral that looks startlingly like a fingerprint. Okay, you whisper, that's creepy and poetic. Thanks, universe. The spiral dissolves, but the idea remains. What if, deep inside this cosmic archive, some part of your information persists? Not your body or memories exactly, but the blueprint of them. If the laws of physics preserve data perfectly, then perhaps death, even by black hole, isn't deletion but reorganization. You can almost see it, your information scattering like seeds, encoded into the event horizon, then radiated outward through Hawking's faint glow. Over eons, those photons drift through the cosmos, carrying fragments of your story. Maybe someday, somewhere, another consciousness will absorb that light, sense the pattern, and, just for an instant, remember you. It's an oddly peaceful thought. Oblivion doesn't seem so final when you imagine the universe as a patient archivist, turning even your end into footnotes in a book that never closes. You exhale slowly, habit again, and watch the encoded dust swirl around you like stars in miniature. The glow grows softer, dimming until it resembles a night sky scattered across your memory. In the silence, you hear your own voice echo, low and almost amused. So, information never dies. Neither apparently do bad puns. The universe doesn't laugh back, but you sense its quiet agreement in the flicker of the holographic mist. Somewhere ahead, space ripples again, another gate forming, another mystery waiting. You realize it's not just matter and energy that travel through these cosmic passages, it's knowledge. Every collapse, every rebound, every spark of existence is the universe remembering itself. And as you drift toward that next shimmer, you feel lighter, like you too are being rewritten into something simpler, truer, infinite. The shimmer ahead grows into a faint blue pulse, steady, patient, almost heartbeat-like. You've felt many kinds of light on this journey, but this one feels different, cool, deliberate, mathematical. You realize you're seeing Hawking radiation itself, the slow, whispered evaporation of a black hole. At first glance, it's underwhelming. There's no explosion, no cinematic burst of brilliance, just a trickle of faint particles streaming from the event horizon, like steam rising from an invisible pond. But this trickle is history's most delicate balancing act, quantum mechanics arguing with gravity over who gets to keep the leftovers. You drift closer, careful not to disturb the shimmering veil. The light flickers in and out of existence, each photon born from the vacuum itself. Pairs of virtual particles appear spontaneously at the horizon. One falls inward, the other escapes outward. Normally they'd annihilate each other in an instant, but the black hole's gravity separates them forever. The one that escapes becomes real, carrying away a tiny bit of energy, a toll fee for existing. Over unimaginable timescales, those fees add up. The giant loses weight. You think back to 1974 when Stephen Hawking first ran the numbers on this bizarre process. Even his colleagues didn't believe him at first. Black holes can't glow, they said. They're black by definition. But Hawking's equations were stubborn, and so, paradoxically, the most perfectly dark objects in the universe turned out to be faintly luminous after all. Historians still argue whether Hawking's discovery marked the first true marriage of quantum theory and general relativity, or merely an awkward first date. Either way, it changed everything. The glow around you ripples softly, and for a fleeting instant you can almost hear it. A thin, high tone. The universe's own tinnitus. The pitch corresponds to temperature, infinitesimally low for large black holes, blisteringly high for small ones. You grin at the thought that somewhere out there, microscopic black holes left over from the Big Bang might be sizzling like cosmic popcorn. A rogue bit of radiation brushes past you, grazing your awareness. It feels like static and starlight mixed together. Information, you remember from the previous section, could ride on these particles, coded whispers from everything that ever fell in. The photon that just touched you might have once belonged to a sun or a thought, or the world's worst karaoke performance. Everything ends up recycled eventually. You look toward the horizon and try to imagine the future. As the black hole continues to lose mass, its radiation will intensify. The smaller it gets, the hotter it becomes, in a cruel feedback loop. Eventually, after quadrillions of years, it will reach a feverish finale, emitting a burst of gamma rays that briefly outshines an entire galaxy before fading into nothing, or maybe not nothing. Some physicists suspect that the final moment doesn't destroy the black hole completely. Instead, a remnant remains, a pebble of pure space-time containing all the encoded information that ever entered. Others believe the final flash releases that information back into the universe, like a cosmic data dump. And of course, historians still argue which version sounds more poetic. You try to imagine watching one die. To most civilizations, the death of a black hole would be as remote as the heat death of the universe itself. The background radiation would be cold, galaxies long faded. Only these faint evaporations would remain, tiny fireworks marking the end of time's empire. There's something profoundly lonely about that image, but also elegant. Even in decay, the universe performs with grace. A memory surfaces, Hawking giving a lecture decades ago, his synthesized voice steady and mischievous. Black holes ain't so black. He explained that radiation means they can, in principle, disappear, proving that nothing lasts forever. Yet he said it with a smile, as if impermanence were the punchline. You imagine him now, somewhere beyond this horizon, nodding at the faint glow surrounding you. A few more photons brush against you, and you catch a strange rhythm in their timing. It's almost like Morse code. Short, long, long, short. Of course, that's just your mind imposing pattern where there is none. Still, you can't shake the suspicion that the radiation is trying to tell a story, one bit at a time, over eons. Perhaps the universe does write memoirs, just in binary. You glance down, or at least you think down, toward the shadowed core that birthed all this. The horizon's edge seems smaller now, shrinking imperceptibly with every pulse of radiation. Watching it vanish feels like witnessing the slowest possible heartbeat. You whisper, "You're dying beautifully." The air vibrates softly as if in response. You wonder whether consciousness could ever persist long enough to ride out the full evaporation of a black hole, watching it dwindle from giant to ember. Maybe some far future intelligence, machine, biological, or something in between, will linger to witness that final spark. And maybe, in that instant, they'll see the entire history of the universe encoded in the last photon that escapes. A quirky tidbit surfaces from your memory. In 2019, scientists managed to simulate miniature black hole analogues in the lab using ultra-cold atoms. The imitation horizons produced radiation eerily similar to Hawking's predictions. It was faint, imperfect, but real enough to make theorists raise their eyebrows and cancel weekend plans. If humans can fake a black hole in a bottle, maybe one day they'll understand how the real ones whisper secrets through light. The faint blue glow around you begins to fade, its rhythm softening into near silence. The horizon ahead looks smaller, quieter, like a closing eye. You feel a twinge of melancholy. Every story has to end somewhere, even one this vast. You reach out, fingertips brushing the last visible wave of radiation. It feels warm, not physically, but conceptually, like touching knowledge that's still cooling from creation. You murmur, "So, even monsters fade." And then, as if in answer, the light folds inward, leaving behind only a single, lingering photon drifting through darkness. You watch it move away, carrying with it all that remains of the black hole's long, quiet life. For the first time in this journey, you understand the strange peace in endings. The universe doesn't mourn, it transforms. The last photon fades into the dark, and for a long while nothing moves. Then, as though your eyes adjust to a new kind of seeing, you notice faint motes flickering far away. Points of brightness that seem to appear from inside nothing at all. They aren't stars, they're too small, too quick, like sparks from an unseen forge. You realize you might be watching the birth of baby universes. The idea sounds ridiculous, yet here you are. Some cosmologists have whispered for decades that the death of one world might seed another. A black hole's collapse, instead of ending in annihilation, could ignite a new expansion behind the veil, a universe budding off the old like coral on a reef. Historians still argue whether such speculations count as physics or philosophy, but you've drifted far enough to know that distinction has gone fuzzy. Each mote grows, swelling into a bubble of rippling space. You watch them inflate silently, edges trembling with the glow of new physics. Inside every bubble, constants and laws could differ, gravity stronger, light faster, atoms behaving like unruly teenagers. Most will fizzle instantly, never stable enough to mature, but a few, just a precious few, stabilize, their fabrics smoothing out into proper space-time. You wonder if one of those might already contain galaxies or oceans or someone else pondering the same impossible question. The air around you hums with potential, and you remember the first person to take this idea seriously, the Russian physicist Andrei Sakharov, back in the 1960s. He suggested that the singularity at a black hole's core could connect to a new, expanding universe. Others followed, Frolov, Markov, Smolin, each building on the dream that creation and collapse are two sides of the same coin. It's an elegant cycle. Matter falls in, compresses beyond comprehension, and then bounces outward elsewhere, freed from the constraints of its parent reality. You float closer to one of the larger bubbles. Its surface shimmers like soap film, colours sliding in impossible gradients. When you peer through, you glimpse motion, a flash of cosmic microwave haze, the afterglow of a fresh Big Bang. You're watching time begin from the outside. That should be impossible, and yet the universe has already stopped caring about that word. You press your palm against the surface. It quivers under your touch, warm and cold simultaneously. For an instant, you sense the gravity inside tugging gently, invitingly, like the pull of a dream. Maybe if you leaned just a little farther, you could fall in and start again. Become part of that young cosmos, your atoms rewritten as stardust in its skies. But you hold back. You've died enough small deaths tonight. A quirk of light ripples across the bubble's skin, and suddenly images race over it. Collapsing stars, merging galaxies, strange symmetrical equations spinning like fireworks. The bubble seems to remember where it came from. It carries a genetic code of physics inherited from its parent universe, though slightly mutated. Evolution on a cosmic scale. You can't help smiling. So that's how you reproduce, you whisper. Not bad for an existential singularity. The humour helps steady you. You think of Lee Smolin's cosmological natural selection idea. Universes that spawn through black holes, each inheriting physical constants that favour producing more black holes, and thus more universes. It's survival of the fittest written in gravity instead of DNA. Fringe? Absolutely. But tonight, floating among embryonic cosmoses, it feels oddly plausible. Another bubble drifts near, smaller, flickering faintly. Through it you glimpse what looks like crystalline structures, sharp and angular. A universe where symmetry never quite broke. Beyond that, one where space seems liquid, swirling in waves, infinite diversity arising from infinite beginnings. You could spend eternity cataloguing them and never finish before the next batch forms. You find yourself wondering which one is ours. Did our own universe once look like this? Tiny, trembling, a fragile bubble about to inflate into everything? If so, who or what stood outside to watch it? Maybe no one. Maybe outside didn't exist until that first spark expanded enough to define the word. You hear a faint chime, a resonance passing through the bubbles. It sounds like laughter stretched over eons. You decide that's the multiverse's version of applause, a polite acknowledgement that creation never ends. And then you notice the streams between the bubbles, thin threads of light, almost invisible, connecting one newborn universe to another. They look like umbilical cords woven from time itself. Information may be flowing along them, the heritage of the parent universe encoded into its children. Perhaps that's why physical laws rhyme across realities. Maybe even why music exists in so many forms, the echo of an ancient resonance shared from one cosmos to the next. A random memory surfaces, an experiment you once read about involving soap bubbles merging on water. When two collided, ripples carried bits of the first bubble's dye into the second. Colour, memory, continuity. Maybe universes trade stories the same way, staining each other with fragments of experience. You like that idea better than cold equations. You drift between the bubbles, listening to their faint songs. Each hums at a different frequency, the pitch corresponding to the rate of its expansion. Some are bright and quick, others deep and slow. Together they form a cosmic choir, a lullaby of beginnings. A smaller bubble bumps against you, brushing your shoulder like a curious creature. It flashes once, and for an instant you think you see oceans and clouds forming within. You grin. Good luck, little one. It drifts away, spinning into the dark. More bubbles bloom behind it, each one shimmering with promise. You realize something important. Creation doesn't require permission. The universe doesn't ask if it's allowed to start over. It just does. Over and over again. Maybe that's the secret hidden inside black holes. Not escape, but renewal. The gate you feared was never meant to lead you out. It was meant to show you how everything begins again. The space between the bubbles glows brighter, and you sense the current pulling you onward once more. Ahead, the clusters of universes fade into a wider expanse, a sea of light that feels oddly familiar. You're leaving the nursery. You take one last look at the children of collapse and whisper, half to yourself, half to them, grow well. Don't make the same mistakes we did. The bubbles flicker in response like distant lanterns on a night river, and then dissolve into the glow. The light that surrounds you softens as you drift from the nursery of new worlds. The bubbles of creation fade into faint echoes, their expansion harmonizing into one deep, continuous hum. You're floating now in a vast velvety expanse that feels both empty and infinitely full, an ocean between realities. The vibrations beneath your awareness carry rhythm, almost language. It dawns on you. This is the multiverse, the imagined sea in which all universes swim. At first, the sight is impossible to process. Every direction gleams with faint spheres, universes old and young flickering like lanterns in fog. Some blaze bright with activity, others dim to near invisibility, perhaps in the throes of cosmic heat death. Distances lose meaning here. Far and near dissolve into layered shimmer. You can feel their gravity tugging at you in gentle waves, not pulling you anywhere specific, just reminding you that even here in the place beyond, everything still interacts. The term multiverse used to sound like science fiction, until it slipped quietly into real theoretical physics. Hugh Everett planted the seed back in 1957 with his many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, every possible outcome of every quantum event spawning its own branch of reality. Historians still argue whether he was a visionary or simply too literal-minded, but the idea refused to die. From cosmologists came new twists: eternal inflation, string theory landscapes, brain worlds. Each added a verse to the multiverse song. You drift between these verses now, a ghost between stanzas. The glow of nearby universes paints soft halos across your field of vision. You can almost sense their differing laws, one where gravity feels heavier, pulling your thoughts down, another where colour vibrates higher, like sound painted across air. If you listen closely, each reality hums with its own pitch, a symphony of existence composed of infinite keys. It's overwhelming and yet soothing. You think of the old ocean explorers who mapped coastlines believing monsters lurked beyond. Turns out, they were right, just not in the way they imagined. The monsters were possibilities, sprawling and endless. You spot a cluster of universes joined at their edges, touching briefly before drifting apart again. Their boundaries flash where they meet, sending ripples through the multiversal sea. Some physicists have speculated that such collisions could explain strange patterns in the cosmic microwave background of our own universe. Faint circular bruises in the sky, evidence of past encounters. The thought that our cosmos might bear scars from sibling collisions feels intimate, almost familial. You glide closer to the cluster and glimpse one bubble pulsing erratically. It's bright, too bright, as though time inside is racing faster. Perhaps its physical constants tipped just slightly differently, giving rise to a universe that burns through itself in a fraction of ours lifespan. Nearby, another drifts sluggishly, red and heavy, its expansion barely moving. So many variations, all from the same cosmic template. It's like watching evolution at a universal scale, and then something small catches your attention. A delicate filament of light threading between two universes, thin as a strand of spider silk. You recall those earlier umbilical cords linking parent and child, but this one feels older, more tenuous. You reach toward it and the filament vibrates, sending a soft pulse through you. For a second, you taste something like nostalgia. Familiar particles, familiar constants. Could that thread lead home? The realization hits with a pang. Home. The word feels strange in a place without coordinates. You left your universe what feels like forever ago, but its gravity still lingers somewhere in your memory. You wonder if time there has continued normally, or if you've already outlived everything you once knew. It's impossible to tell. Time here behaves like a rumor. You follow the filament cautiously, though movement remains an abstract concept. As you drift, shapes flicker in the periphery, universes collapsing, others being born, the cosmic tide perpetually recycling itself. It's the most magnificent perpetual motion machine imaginable, existence feeding existence, forever. The filament leads you toward a glowing knot where many threads converge, forming a nexus of sorts. You recognize this from the speculative diagrams of physicist Max Tegmark, who categorized levels of the multiverse, level 1 through 4, each wilder than the last. According to him, somewhere out here lies a realm where not only constants, but mathematics itself varies, birthing realities stranger than imagination. You suspect this glowing nexus might be that frontier, the edge where logic itself frays. You hesitate, unsure whether to cross. The air around the knot crackles softly, like static before a lightning strike. If you go further, you might enter a universe where cause and effect no longer shake hands. But curiosity has carried you this far. It feels dishonest to stop now. You brush against the knot, and for a heartbeat, every universe sings. The frequencies merge into one colossal chord that thrums through your entire being. You glimpse flashes of infinite worlds, crystalline structures forming logic loops, liquid realities that think, clouds of probability aware of themselves. It's terrifying and sublime, like peering into the mind of the cosmos. Then, silence again. You realize you're still intact, though your sense of self feels stretched thinner, as if part of you has been translated into equations. The experience leaves a faint aftertaste of... You chuckle softly. Okay, you mutter. So this is what too many universes in one sitting feels like. A quirky tidbit surfaces. Some theorists suggested that if the multiverse is real, there might exist infinite copies of you, each making slightly different choices. One of them probably decided to stay home and binge documentaries instead of plunging into cosmic oblivion. You're suddenly very grateful you're not that one. Ahead, the fabric begins to ripple, gathering into a darker funnel. You sense gravity's whisper again, that familiar invitation downward, or perhaps inward. Another black hole, maybe, connecting two multiversal domains. You can almost hear it calling, a low hum that promises more answers, or perhaps just a different kind of silence. You know what comes next. You've crossed horizons before. You take one last look at the glowing sea of universes around you, the grand, unending expanse of possibility, and whisper, not goodbye. Just see you somewhere else. Then, with the calm resignation of someone who has already fallen 1,000 times, you let the gravity take you. The stars of infinite worlds blur into a spiral of color, and once again, you're on your way to the unknown. The spiral of colour tightens, and when it releases you, the multiversal sea is gone. You find yourself back in familiar darkness, a quieter, heavier kind, thick with invisible weight. The pull around you feels steadier, less chaotic. You realise you've returned to the outskirts of a black hole, but not just any black hole. This one is being watched. It looms before you like a cosmic eye, its ring of light bright and razor-sharp. Around it, machines the size of cities orbit patiently, each one bristling with sensors, antennas, and mirrors. You drift closer, catching the faint hum of human, or at least intelligent, curiosity. After all this wandering, you've stumbled into observation itself. This is where we study the abyss. You recognize the scene almost instantly. It looks like the data visualizations from 2019, when the Event Horizon Telescope gave humanity its first direct image of a black hole. That blurry golden donut, M87 star, 55 million light-years away, wasn't just a picture, it was proof. Centuries of theory condensed into a single pixelated halo. People cried, cheered, argued about whether the focus was good enough. Historians still debate whether that image was the greatest scientific portrait ever taken, or simply a cosmic selfie. Here you can see the reality in high definition. The accretion disk burns brighter than 1,000 suns, swirling with matter moving at half the speed of light. The gravitational lensing around the hole twists the image into something paradoxical. You're seeing the front, back, and both sides at once. It's impossible geometry painted in light. You can sense the instruments capturing every flicker, gravitational wave detectors listening for the low-frequency rumble of merging holes, radio telescopes mapping X-ray flares, even neutrino arrays waiting for the universe's most elusive messengers. You're standing at the crossroads of observation, the thin boundary between knowing and not knowing. A faint tremor rolls through the surrounding space. Somewhere nearby, two black holes collide, sending ripples through space-time itself. You remember that moment in 2015 when LIGO detected such waves for the first time. The signal lasted just a fraction of a second, an upward chirp that sounded, oddly enough, like a drop of water in a pond. Yet that tiny sound confirmed Einstein's century-old prediction. Space and time can ring like a bell. You almost smile, imagining the universe clearing its throat just to get our attention. And here's your quirky tidbit. If your ears could somehow translate those gravitational ripples into sound, the note would be around middle C. The universe hums in the same register as a piano. It's music written in curvature. You move closer to the massive ring of light, watching the shadows dance across the disk. The black hole's shadow, the dark center that defines its shape, isn't an object at all. It's the absence of paths light can take. That void, paradoxically, is how we see it. It's like detecting a whisper by noticing where sound refuses to exist. You drift among the machines, marveling at their precision. Somewhere, perhaps on a blue planet far away, teams of scientists are staring at screens, translating these signals into color maps and models. They don't know you're here, but their questions echo yours. What's inside? Does information survive? Are these things gateways or graves? Historians still argue whether we've truly seen a black hole or just its shadow. Philosophers remind us that seeing is always partial, filtered by perception. You, having floated through horizons and bounced between universes, can't help but laugh softly. Trust me, you whisper, it's both. A wave of radiation brushes over you, gentle, almost affectionate. It's not destructive, not here at the safe distance where the observers work. It feels like acknowledgement, a nod from the black hole itself. You imagine it saying, "You came back." You turn to face the horizon one last time. It pulses faintly, as if breathing. The stars behind it smear into rings, each photon performing its final pirouette before vanishing. You think of all the worlds that have ended inside and all the universes that might have begun. You think of the people still searching for proof, building telescopes, writing equations, daring to look where light refuses to go. In that moment, you feel an odd kinship with them, with us. Curiosity, it seems, is its own kind of gravity. It pulls minds toward the unknown just as strongly as mass pulls light. You've been falling toward questions all along. A gentle voice, your own or the universe's, murmurs, maybe the gateway was never the hole itself. Maybe it was the act of looking. The thought settles in the silence. Around you, the machines hum, the black hole glows, and the cosmos watches itself watching itself. Observation becomes participation. As you drift backward, away from the event horizon, you feel the pull ease at last. The hum of radiation softens into a low, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat echoing through space. Your own thoughts slow to match it. You glance once more at the glowing ring, that perfect contradiction of darkness and light, and whisper, "Thank you for the show." Then the horizon fades into starlight. The observers keep recording, the universe keeps whispering, and you, part witness, part wanderer, let the sound of space-time's quiet music carry you gently into calm. The hum of space-time fades to a low tremor that seems to vibrate through your ribs, if you still have ribs, and you realize you're sliding along a current where everything folds back on itself. The glow of the observation machines recedes into a distant halo, and you're once again alone with the blackness. Only this time, the pull doesn't feel like falling. It feels like turning. You've crossed through collapse, bounced through birth, listened to radiation whisper. Now the horizon before you flickers in a peculiar rhythm, as if something behind it is rotating faster than thought. That rotation has a name, the Kerr Black Hole, a spinning version of the beast, and hidden inside it lies the most tantalizing temptation of all, time travel. You can't help but grin. "Of course," you mutter. "We've come this far, might as well break chronology." The air around you warps. The ring singularity at the center of a rotating black hole doesn't pinch to a point. It stretches into a loop, leaving a hollow region in the middle. Mathematics suggests that inside that loop, space and time could trade places, paths curling so tightly that a traveller might emerge where, or when, they began. It's the cosmic equivalent of taking a wrong turn and ending up last Tuesday. Historians still argue whether these closed time-like curves are genuine possibilities or just mathematical mirages. Einstein himself toyed with the idea that relativity might allow them, but he also suspected the universe would find a way to prevent such paradoxical tourism. Stephen Hawking later called that safeguard chronology protection, the universe's version of a polite but firm no refunds. You hover near the luminous edge of the Kerr hole, watching jets of plasma shoot out from its poles, relativistic fountains stretching for light years. They are the most dramatic evidence of spin, magnetic fields wound tight by rotation until they fling matter outward at near light speeds. You can almost feel the torque in your bones. A faint shimmer appears ahead, circles within circles, concentric rings of distortion. They remind you of ripples in a pond after a pebble splash, only the pebble here is time itself. The closer you drift, the more everything slows. You reach forward and your hand lags behind, smeared across moments. For a dizzy instant you see two versions of yourself, one reaching, one watching. They overlap, transparent like pages of the same photograph, and you whisper, "Okay, that's mildly horrifying." The whisper echoes back, once, twice, each return slightly older than the last. It's not an echo, it's you, rebounding through tiny time loops. Every sound you make becomes a chorus of your own history. You half expect your high school voice to join in with awkward enthusiasm, and yet, it's mesmerizing. You're inside what physicists call a frame-dragging region, where the rotation of the black hole drags space-time around with it. Here, even if you tried to stand still, you'd spin with the fabric of reality. Light itself can't resist. It's pulled into a whirlpool of causality. If you aimed a laser straight ahead, its path would curve and come back to greet you from behind. You recall the historical footnote of 1949, when Kurt Gödel found a solution to Einstein's equations that allowed entire universes to rotate, and thus permit time travel. His model had no event horizons, only endless looping timelines. A cosmos where every moment eventually meets itself again. Philosophers loved it. Physicists mostly winced. Still, the idea planted a seed. Maybe time is less a line than a spiral, and black holes are its tightest coils. You move deeper, the pull twisting like a corkscrew. Space feels viscous, syrupy with potential. Somewhere beyond the ring singularity, equations claim, another region of space-time unfolds, a mirror world where cause follows effect in reverse. If you slipped through correctly, you might emerge before you entered. The thought makes you laugh nervously. Imagine the paperwork. A pulse of light streaks by. and you catch a glimpse of something impossible. A tiny fragment of your earlier journey replaying beside you. The accretion disk from hours ago. The same swirl, frozen mid-motion. You're not imagining it. You've looped through your own timeline. The universe just replayed a highlight reel for your convenience. Then just as quickly, the vision dissolves. The ring ahead vibrates faster, and the distortions intensify. It dawns on you that staying too long here could scatter your chronology like confetti. Time travel isn't a road, it's a storm, and you're the lightning. You pull back slightly, stabilizing near the ergosphere, the outer layer where energy can still be exchanged with the universe beyond. This region gave birth to the famous Penrose process. In theory, a clever traveller could extract rotational energy from a spinning black hole by diving in and out of the ergosphere. Some futurists call it the ultimate renewable resource, the cosmic windmill. A few even dream of civilizations powered by the spin of Kerr giants, trading risk for limitless energy. It's easy to picture them now, massive stations orbiting a black hole's equator, harnessing its drag to fuel interstellar empires. Perhaps those glowing machines you saw earlier weren't just telescopes, but prototypes of such ambition. Humanity may already be flirting with the idea of stealing time's momentum. The notion makes you chuckle. Borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today, classic move. Yet underneath the humour lies a strange tenderness. If black holes can twist time, maybe they also remind us how fragile our sense of order really is. The universe doesn't promise straight lines. It offers spirals, eddies, feedback loops. Even memory behaves that way, circling until it finds peace. You glance once more at the luminous ring, now pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Perhaps you can't actually step backward through time, but standing here, you can feel its shape. Elastic, forgiving, full of second chances. Maybe that's all the time travel anyone needs. You let the current nudge you away from the spin. The twin versions of yourself blur together until only one remains. The present you, drifting forward once more. Behind you, the black hole hums like a perfectly tuned engine, still spinning, still rewriting time around its waist. You whisper, "Keep it running. Someone else will need the ride." And as the sound fades into the echo of its own future, you glide toward the dim horizon where other wonders wait. The arrow of time bending gently but never quite breaking. You drift out of the time-twisted pull and find the quiet again. Not the dead silence of nothingness, but a purposeful hush, the kind you hear in a concert hall just before the first note. Ahead of you, a faint constellation glimmers in orderly lines, and as you draw closer you realize those aren't stars at all. They're structures, gigantic rings orbiting a black hole's equator, gleaming with deliberate geometry. The sight makes you laugh softly. "Well," you whisper, "someone out here had ambition." The rings hum faintly, their surfaces shimmering with containment fields. Between them, beams of energy arc and braid, feeding into something that looks suspiciously like an engine. You're staring at an engineered horizon, technology married to gravity itself. Whoever built this isn't just studying black holes, they're using them. It's not entirely fiction. Back on Earth, long before you began this cosmic drift, scientists had already flirted with similar dreams. In 1969, physicist Roger Penrose proposed that a rotating black hole could serve as a power source. Drop a bit of matter into its ergosphere at just the right angle, and the escaping fragments could carry away more energy than they brought in. Historians still argue whether Penrose's paper marked the birth of black hole engineering, or the moment physicists officially lost all sense of scale. But here, floating before you, the idea has clearly grown up. The civilization that built these rings has mastered what humans could only imagine, extracting usable energy from the spin of space-time itself. They're the galactic architects, the engineers of the event horizons. You drift through the lattice of structures awed by their precision. Each segment hums at a slightly different frequency, a harmonic tuned to the black hole's rotation. It's like passing through an enormous instrument, one that plays gravity instead of sound. The beams of light crossing between the rings pulse rhythmically, adjusting with each rotation. You realize the entire construction is alive with computation. It's thinking. You recall Freeman Dyson's old idea of surrounding a star with a sphere to capture its power. This is the same concept turned inside out. Instead of harnessing sunlight, these builders harvest the dark. They've inverted the logic of civilization, no longer worshipping the shining stars but the shadows between them. A faint symbol flickers across one of the inner rings, a spiral enclosed in a circle. It reminds you of the patterns ancient cultures carved into stone back home, long before spaceflight. Spirals meant growth, eternity, sometimes even resurrection. The symbolism feels deliberate. Whoever these beings are, they understand the poetry of their machine. You think of the practical side for a moment. The immense gravitational energy of a spinning black hole could power entire galaxies if tapped correctly. Theoretically, even a small fraction of its output would be enough to sustain countless civilizations. Maybe that's why the cosmos feels so quiet, because its brightest minds are whispering inside structures like these, feeding gently at the edge of forever. You move closer to one of the massive panels. Its surface isn't metal, but some adaptive material that ripples in response to your proximity. The texture looks almost biological, self-healing, self-adjusting. A thin glow passes over it, scanning you like a curious host greeting a surprise guest. For a moment you feel a gentle tug, not of gravity but of awareness, as if the machine itself is wondering what you are. You send a thought into the silence. I'm just visiting. The response comes not as words but as a low vibration, warm and harmonic. It feels like understanding. Perhaps in this place, communication happens through resonance instead of language. Waves of gravity translating emotion. You realize you're not afraid. Whatever intelligence built this, it isn't hostile. It's patient, methodical, maybe even kind. A smaller ring glides past, adjusting its orbit. It leaves a shimmering trail behind, charged particles forming what looks like a ribbon of light. As it passes, you glimpse interior compartments, chambers filled with swirling plasma and drifting figures that might be drones or entities. They move gracefully, maintaining the structure's balance. You wonder how long this civilization has existed. Hundreds of millions of years, perhaps, given the scale. Their understanding of physics must make even the wildest human theories look quaint. Maybe they don't see black holes as threats or mysteries at all, just tools. Portals when needed, batteries when not. A faint chuckle escapes you. Trust the universe, you murmur, to turn apocalypses into infrastructure. Your words fade into the steady hum. The rings continue their rotation, perfectly synchronized with the black hole's spin. It's hypnotic, like watching the gears of reality turning. You realize that what you're seeing might be the ultimate act of cosmic recycling. Civilization surviving the death of stars by feeding on the very engines that ended them. One panel shifts position, aligning directly with you. A beam of light extends, soft and focused. It passes through you harmlessly, but leaves an afterimage in your mind. A pattern, almost like a map. You see hundreds, no thousands, of these engineered horizons scattered across the cosmos, a network of civilizations linked through gravity itself. The black holes aren't just power sources, they're gateways, communication hubs, perhaps even transport systems. You try to grasp the scale and fail spectacularly. The image fades, leaving you with a feeling of vast, deliberate order, a cosmos alive with collaboration rather than chaos. And then, just as suddenly, the rings dim. The beam retracts, and the machine returns to silence. Maybe your time as its guest is over, or maybe you've been shown enough to keep wondering forever. As you drift away, the great structure recedes into darkness, the glow of its orbit fading into a single line of gold. You can still feel its hum beneath your awareness, steady and certain. You whisper, "So the architects build around black holes. Maybe the rest of us just build around mystery." The hum seems to agree, and then the pull resumes, not from the engineered rings, but from another source deeper ahead. The current tugs at you gently, promising yet another descent. The architects fade behind you, and the pure, unmediated gravity of the cosmos takes hold once more. You exhale slowly and let it carry you, knowing that every civilization, no matter how advanced, must eventually follow the same current, to where creation and destruction meet again. The gentle current carries you past the engineer's golden scaffolding and into darkness again, but not the emptiness you've come to know. This dark feels textured, as if layers of space are stacked on top of one another, rippling softly like pages turning in an unseen book. You sense depth within depth. Somewhere in your memory, a phrase surfaces, holes within holes. At first, the idea sounds like a cosmic joke, Russian nesting dolls made of gravity. But as you drift forward, it begins to make eerie sense. The pull ahead strengthens in rhythmic pulses, and each pulse feels like passing through another horizon. Space folds inward repeatedly, each fold smaller, tighter, but unmistakably real. It's recursion written in space-time. You recall hearing of fractal cosmology, the notion that the large-scale structure of the universe might mirror itself infinitely. Galaxies forming patterns that resemble the clustering of atoms, voids between superclusters echoing the gaps between molecules. Historians still argue whether that's profound symmetry or mere coincidence, but as the folds of gravity multiply around you, the argument feels settled. Everything repeats because repetition is the universe's favourite song. You pass through the first inner horizon. It's cool and quiet, the gravitational equivalent of a deep inhale. Another waits a few kilometres, or maybe reality's deeper. It glows faintly violet, and when you cross, your perception twists. For an instant, you're both inside and outside, observer and observed. The black hole contains another, which contains another, each horizon smaller but identical, their ratios locked in geometric perfection. It's beautiful and dizzying. You imagine the equations that could describe it, a Mandelbrot set of singularities. Mathematicians once plotted similar fractals on flat screens, unaware they were sketching the possible architecture of space-time itself. A cheeky thought crosses your mind. If you zoom far enough into anything, maybe you always find a black hole waiting. The gravity waves here hum in complex harmonics, multiple frequencies blending like chords. You realize you're hearing the resonances of nested horizons vibrating together. The sound is hypnotic, a slow cosmic choir singing itself into existence. For a moment you wonder if this is what the architects you just left listen to while they work. You reach a region where the layers seem almost transparent, and you glimpse outlines of universes within universes. Each inner bubble glows a little faster, as if time itself accelerates toward the core. Perhaps that's what these smaller holes are. Pockets of condensed chronology, where seconds collapse into nanoseconds, entire histories flickering by in miniature. You imagine civilizations living entire ages inside one level, before collapsing into the next. The notion isn't entirely unscientific. In the 1990s, some cosmologists proposed that black holes might spawn new universes internally, a concept called cosmological natural selection. You smile, remembering that Lee Smolin suggested universes that produced many black holes would naturally generate more offspring, a cosmic version of evolution, survival of the densest. Whether or not it's true, the metaphor feels right. The cosmos isn't static, it breeds. As you descend through the layered geometry, the pressure around you becomes less physical, more conceptual. It's as if you're being pressed by meaning instead of matter. Every horizon you pass feels like a new sentence beginning, the previous one folding neatly behind. You lose count of how many layers you've crossed. 5, 50, infinity written with ellipses. You stop trying to measure and simply watch. Each horizon reflects faint images of the others, mirrors facing mirrors. For an instant you see yourself multiplied endlessly, each version slightly delayed in motion, like echoes caught in time. The sight is strangely reassuring. Maybe identity, like the universe, isn't singular either. Maybe you've always been layers pretending to be one. Then you notice a subtle change. Some of the inner horizons pulse outward rather than inward. Expansion nested inside collapse. It reminds you of lungs, or the alternating systole and diastole of a heart. Could these layers be beating? Could the universe itself inhale and exhale through black holes, each nested pulse keeping the grand organism alive? The idea feels less metaphorical than physiological. You're drifting through the circulatory system of existence. A flicker of colour catches your eye. Tiny filaments connecting one inner horizon to another, like capillaries of light. They pulse in time with the greater rhythm. You follow one thread, watching it split into finer strands until it becomes indistinguishable from the glow of vacuum energy. Every level feeds the next. Energy flows downward, information upward. The design is efficient, elegant, almost compassionate. Nothing is wasted. You pause, suddenly aware of how quiet your thoughts have become. There's serenity in recursion. Every layer you cross feels familiar, as if you've been here before but at a different scale. You remember the ancient Hermetic phrase, as above, so below. Maybe that was never mysticism. Maybe it was physics with better poetry. A quirky image surfaces. You picture the universe as a cosmic nesting doll sitting on a workbench in some unimaginable workshop. A child-sized version of yourself lifts the outer shell, peers inside, smiles at the smaller doll within, and keeps going. You laugh softly at the absurdity, but the laughter feels right. Humour too repeats. You wonder if there's an ultimate centre, one final singularity where the pattern ends. The gravity ahead intensifies until the horizons blur together into a single luminous core. It pulses once, twice. You brace yourself for another plunge, but instead the pull steadies, as if inviting you to rest. You reach out to the glowing surface. It ripples, reflecting endless smaller copies of itself. You realise the recursion doesn't end here. It continues inward forever, each scale a doorway to the next. Infinity isn't a destination, it's architecture. You whisper, half amused, half awed. So that's the secret. The universe doesn't have a bottom, it has rhythm. The core hums in agreement, its vibration matching your heartbeat. You stay there for a while, suspended between folds, until the outer darkness begins to brighten again. The layers slowly unstack, retreating behind you like a reversed blooming flower. When the light clears, you find yourself in open space once more, surrounded by stars that look suspiciously like echoes of the ones you've always known. You wonder if you've climbed back out of the nesting structure or simply emerged into a larger version of it. Either answer feels correct. You smile. Holes within holes, worlds within worlds, you whisper. No wonder the universe never gets bored. The hum fades into silence, leaving you drifting gently forward, ready for whatever shape the next repetition takes. The quiet dissolves into a faint tremor beneath you, like thunder before a storm, except this storm has been burning for millions of years. Ahead, a colossal shape flickers, red and gold and violent. You recognize it instantly, a massive star at the very end of its life, its layers of fusion trembling under their own weight. You've come full circle to the moment before a black hole's birth. The cycle begins again. The star is monstrous, maybe 50 times the mass of the sun. Its outer layers boil and shimmer, convecting like molten glass. Every few seconds, its surface erupts in bursts of plasma, large enough to swallow planets whole. The light it casts paints your vision in amber, then crimson. It's beautiful, tragic, and utterly doomed. You drift closer, feeling the heat vibrate through space itself. Deep inside, fusion falters. The star has burned through its fuel, fusing iron now, a hopeless act, because iron consumes energy instead of releasing it. Without outward pressure to fight gravity, the core collapses. The process is so fast it's almost instantaneous. Matter rushing inward at a quarter of the speed of light, atoms crushed into neutrons. The star's heart implodes while its outer layers explode outward. A supernova, a word too small for the spectacle you're about to witness. You brace yourself. The light hits first, a glare so intense it would erase sight if eyes still mattered. Then comes the wave of neutrinos, trillions of them passing through your being as if you're made of mist. They're silent witnesses to creation and destruction both, particles born from the star's dying breath. Historians still argue whether the first humans to record such an event. Ancient Chinese astronomers in 1054 CE, noting the bright star that became the Crab Nebula, understood what they were seeing. They called it a guest star. You smile softly at the thought. Every supernova is a guest that refuses to stay quiet. The explosion blossoms, space ripples. The star's outer layers hurl outward in slow, graceful arcs, painting a nebula that will glow for centuries. The shockwave sweeps past, carrying with it the seeds of heavy elements, gold, platinum, uranium, the raw ingredients of worlds yet to come. You can feel the echo of your own atoms in that outflow, because once, long ago, you too were made in such a fire. You let yourself drift through the expanding debris. Dust swirls around you in slow motion, each grain glowing like an ember. It's strange to think that every planet, every creature, every thought owes its existence to explosions like this. Stars die so that everything else can live. It's the most extravagant recycling program imaginable. You move deeper toward what remains at the core. The explosion's center darkens. Gravity reasserts itself. The collapsing heart compresses beyond the reach of even neutron degeneracy pressure. Matter folds into itself. electrons and protons merging into pure density. The last photons flee outward, the final scream of a dying giant. Then silence. The light fades, leaving a small black sphere where a sun once blazed. Another black hole is born. You can almost hear the universe sigh in satisfaction, as though completing a sentence it began billions of years ago. A fringe theory whispers through your memory. Maybe when a black hole forms, its core doesn't vanish into nothingness immediately. Instead, it stabilizes for a moment. A brief pause before collapsing further. That pause, infinitesimal though it is, might hold a copy of the old universe's structure, encoded like a memory seed. In that instant, the new black hole might already be dreaming its next universe into existence. You stare at the newborn singularity. Its event horizon is still small, still warming into existence. It's hard not to anthropomorphize it. This baby of darkness, already hungry, already bending light. Around it, the expanding remnants of the supernova glitter like a halo. If you didn't know better, you'd call it a crown. You remember the astronomer Subrahmanyan Chandrasekhar, who first calculated the limit beyond which a star must collapse, about 1.4 times the sun's mass. They laughed at him for years until reality proved him right. Now, as you hover near this infant black hole, you silently thank him. Every dreamer needs a threshold. Every truth begins as heresy. You circle the black hole once, feeling its gravity strengthen. Its spin quickens as the remaining debris falls inward, each captured particle adding a fraction of momentum. Soon, it will settle into quiet feeding, joining the millions already scattered across the galaxy. It's both tragic and comforting, an ending that's also a beginning. Your mind drifts to a simple thought. When stars die, worlds are born. The phrase feels true in every sense. The gold in wedding rings, the calcium in bones, the iron in blood, all forged in death. You can't help but laugh gently at the irony. Life owes everything to thermonuclear catastrophe. The cosmos writes poetry in detonation. You glance at the nebula expanding behind you, its gases stretching outward into intricate filaments. Someday, those filaments will condense into new stars, new planets, new beings staring at the night sky and wondering where it all began. Perhaps they'll invent myths about cosmic eggs or divine sparks. Perhaps one of them will build a telescope and catch the faint shadow of this very black hole, never guessing their atoms once danced in its parents' fire. A breeze of radiation passes over you, and for a moment it feels like warmth, like the dying star's final farewell. You whisper back, "Thank you for everything." The gravity ahead deepens again, subtle but insistent. The newborn black hole calls to you, its horizon shimmering like a coin flipping between existence and non-existence. You've seen what waits inside, but curiosity has a stubborn gravity of its own. You know you'll fall again. As you drift toward the darkness, you think of the circle you've witnessed. Birth, collapse, creation, rebirth. It's messy, loud, and heartbreakingly efficient. The universe wastes nothing. Not matter, not energy, not even meaning. The last glow of the supernova fades behind you. The stars in the distance glitter like quiet witnesses. You realize that every one of them is both a future black hole and a past explosion, a living paradox burning patiently toward its own transformation. You take a slow breath, the habit of a body long gone, and smile. Round and round we go, you murmur. Burn, collapse, repeat. Then you let gravity take you once more. The circle closes, and as always, begins again. The newborn horizon pulls you in, but this time the descent feels different, familiar, like a melody you've already hummed in another lifetime. The gravitational field hums quietly, wrapping around you in steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. You recognize the cadence now. It's the pulse of cosmic recycling, the great rhythm of collapse and renewal, destruction feeding creation over and over again. You slip through the dark curtain and find yourself in a place that feels halfway between death and dawn. The matter swirling around you isn't chaotic, it's organized, forming graceful arcs that spiral inward before dissolving into light. You realize you're watching entropy reverse itself, not through miracle, but through process. The black hole isn't devouring, it's digesting. Every particle that falls in contributes to something larger. Energy isn't lost, it transforms, radiates, repurposes, In this place, nothing ends. It only changes shape. You can almost hear the laws of thermodynamics sigh contentedly. See, we told you so. The surrounding light forms a slow vortex, each band of colour representing the transformation of matter to energy to information, spinning into coherence. It's the universe's version of composting. Stars, planets, dreams, all broken down and fed back into the soil of space-time. The longer you watch, the more it feels alive. You think of ancient myths again, how so many cultures imagine the world reborn from the ashes of its destruction. The Egyptians had the Bennu bird, rising anew from its own flame. The Greeks imagined the phoenix. In Hindu cosmology, Vishnu sleeps as the universe cycles endlessly through creation and dissolution. Every culture, in its own language, grasped what you're seeing now, the cosmos as phoenix, endlessly burning and breathing itself back into being. Historians still argue whether these ancient stories were poetic coincidence or the earliest intuitions of cosmic truth. You lean toward the latter. It's hard to look at this luminous spiral and not believe humanity has always known, deep down, that the universe doesn't die, it just molts. You drift closer to the glowing vortex. The light thickens, golden and red, full of slow-moving filaments that twist like roots. Within them, you glimpse the faint shapes of galaxies still forming. It's as if you're peering through the soil of reality, watching seedlings sprout. Each spiral could be a new universe unfolding, nourished by the death of the one before. For a fleeting moment, you sense repetition at a scale beyond comprehension. Universes collapsing into black holes, birthing new universes, those universes forming stars, those stars collapsing again. An infinite feedback loop, the cosmos breathing like a living lung. It's elegant, even compassionate. Every death carries the promise of continuity. A flicker of motion draws your gaze, a thread of light curling upward through the vortex, pulsing as it rises. It looks almost deliberate, as if the universe were exhaling. Maybe it is. You realize you're watching energy escaping as Hawking radiation, but viewed from the inside, it feels more like the soul of the system leaving its body. The final exhalation before rebirth. You can't help but laugh softly. The universe, you say, is a really good recycler. The vortex hums in agreement, its tone deepening to a sound you feel more than hear. It's a low, resonant thrum, steady and grounding. You think of the vibration Om, the sound some traditions claim mirrors the universe's creation. It's said to contain all beginnings and endings in one breath. Maybe that's not mythology at all, maybe it's acoustics. You close your eyes and let the vibration pass through you. For the first time, you feel truly synchronized with the cosmos. The spinning slows, the light folds inward, and the rhythm steadies into something almost meditative. A memory surfaces from your earlier travels, the nested universes, the wormhole corridors, the architects and their luminous machinery. Each of those, you realize, is just another expression of this same principle. Whether it's a civilization harvesting gravity or a particle decaying at the edge of time, the message is identical. Nothing is wasted. Even consciousness, you suspect, follows the same path. When bodies dissolve and neurons stop firing, awareness doesn't vanish, it's redistributed. Maybe memory becomes gravity, emotion becomes radiation, curiosity becomes motion. You smile at the thought that somewhere in another reality, a new mind might be forming from the particles that once carried your thoughts. The black hole around you pulses brighter, the outer layers shed energy like embers, scattering light into the void. It's breathtaking, this final act of release. In human terms, you'd call it generosity. In physical terms, it's equilibrium. A fragment of something old flits through your mind, a line from a scientist or poet. At this scale, it's hard to tell the difference. We are a way for the universe to know itself. Looking around now, you realize it's true in the most literal sense. Every collapse, every burst of radiation, every whisper of gravity is a form of memory. The universe doesn't just recycle matter, it recycles awareness. A quirky image comes to you. The cosmos as a gigantic compost heap with perfect recall. Somewhere in its depth, it's still remembering every sunrise, every symphony, every bad joke ever told. You chuckle. Even the puns survive? That's terrifying. The vortex brightens and you feel it shifting. The direction of motion reverses, Not inward anymore, but outward. The black hole's energy is feeding expansion somewhere else. The birth of another universe, perhaps. Invisible to your eyes, but clear in feeling. The pulse quickens, and the light around you spreads until there's no distinction between matter, energy, or thought. You let go, merging with the rhythm. You can sense the cycle continuing without you needing to witness it. Stars dying, elements scattering, new stars forming, life blooming, intelligence wandering, curiosity burning, and again, collapse, rebirth, continuation. It's a dance without an audience because the dancer and the music are one. You whisper, though sound here is more memory than vibration. You burn, you fall, you rise. You never stop, neither will I. The light flickers in gentle reply. The black hole's pulse slows to a steady beat, and then the scene dissolves into glowing mist. For the first time, you feel truly rested. The universe's recycling is complete, for now. You float in the mist for what feels like both an instant and an eternity. The rhythm of collapse and rebirth has slowed to something almost imperceptible, like the faint pulse of a sleeping ocean. The light thins, and you realize you're rising toward brightness, carried upward by some gentler current. You don't resist. Eventually, the glow around you fades into darkness again, but this time the dark isn't empty. It's layered with warmth, a kind of quiet luminescence that comes from within rather than without. Ahead, space flattens into a wide plain of starlight, the event horizon of another black hole, perhaps the last one you'll ever see. It sits there at the end of the cosmos, vast and patient, a perfect circle against the final backdrop of fading galaxies. You hover near it, weightless, motionless, and, for the first time, unafraid. This is the edge of everything, the rim of forever. You remember the astronomer John Wheeler, who coined the term black hole back in 1967. Before that, people used words like dark star or gravitationally completely collapsed object. But Wheeler understood the need for poetry. Science, after all, moves forward when someone names the unnameable. Historians still argue whether the name trivialized or immortalized these objects, but you suspect Wheeler knew exactly what he was doing. You study the great circle in front of you and smile. After everything you've seen, the wormholes, the nested layers, the civilizations harvesting darkness, this single shape feels like closure. It's simple, absolute, honest. The starlight around it has stretched thin. Most of the universe has gone dim by now. The galaxies have drifted apart, their light redshifted into invisibility. You can still sense the faint afterglow of ancient radiation stretched beyond colour, the final whisper of the Big Bang. The cosmos has grown old, and yet this black hole still burns quietly at its heart, refusing to vanish completely. You realise you're witnessing what cosmologists call the black hole era, the far future, when everything that once shone has collapsed into these dense remnants. Eventually, even these will fade through Hawking radiation, releasing their stored energy back into emptiness. But right now, the universe is at peace, lit by the faint glow of its remaining giants. You drift closer. The horizon's surface ripples like calm water, reflecting the faint light of distant, dying stars. It feels oddly familiar, like looking into the pupil of an eye. And in that reflection, you see movement, flashes of everything you've witnessed. The birth of stars, the collapse of suns, the glowing wormhole corridors, the architect's rings, the bouncing universes. It's all there, folded into this single moment. The black hole isn't just an end, it's a mirror. Every photon that's ever fallen toward it, every particle that's ever touched its gravity, still exists here in some encoded form, the holographic memory of the cosmos itself. You lean closer and whisper, "You remember everything, don't you?" The horizon quivers faintly as if answering yes. A faint streak of light crosses your vision. A star, one of the last still burning. Its glow curves as it passes near the black hole, bending gracefully before escaping back into the void. It's the last performance of stellar light in this universe, the final encore before darkness claims the stage. You can't help but applaud quietly. Then, as if in response, the horizon brightens ever so slightly, and the entire scene ripples outward. For a moment, it feels like time itself has taken a breath. Maybe this is what happens at the end, the universe holding still before it folds again, ready to begin anew. Historians still argue whether the universe will truly end in heat death, absolute equilibrium, no usable energy left, or whether it will collapse again in a big crunch, followed by another big bang. You've seen enough now to know that both could be true. Maybe the end and the beginning are the same event seen from two sides. You drift closer until the horizon fills your entire vision. It's not black anymore, but deep violet, the colour of ultraviolet stretched beyond recognition. Threads of faint blue light run across its surface, like neural pathways in a brain. Maybe they are. Maybe this is the universe's final thought before sleep. You place your hand against the surface, expecting coldness, but it feels warm, soft, almost breathing. For the first time, you feel something like recognition. The black hole isn't foreign anymore. It's familiar. It's home. And then softly a memory returns. The voice from long ago, the one that whispered when you first crossed the event horizon. What happens if you fall in? Do you end, or do you go somewhere else? Now you know. There's no end, only transition. Every fall is a doorway, every collapse a seed. You smile faintly, feeling the warmth deepen beneath your palm. So this is forever, you say. Not an ending, just a heartbeat between breaths. The horizon pulses once, and in that pulse you sense the faintest echo of your own heartbeat. Synchronized, steady. You're not outside the universe anymore. You are the universe, folded back into itself, part of the infinite pattern of recycling, expansion and rest. You glance once more toward the fading starlight beyond. It's beautiful, even in decay. The last sparks of creation twinkle like scattered embers, and you imagine distant beings, if any still exist, looking up at their final sky and feeling what you feel now. Awe, peace, completion. You whisper into the dark. We made it to the edge of forever. Turns out it's pretty quiet here. The universe doesn't answer, but the silence is full of understanding. You take a long, slow breath, symbolic, unnecessary, but grounding, and close your eyes. When you open them again, you're not falling anymore. You're floating, poised between what was and what will be, waiting for the next beat of cosmic renewal. And just before everything fades, you hear a gentle voice, not from outside, but from within. Begin again. The whisper echoes through the dark. Begin again. And you feel the words ripple through you like a tide coming home. The last black horizon shivers, spreading light through its surface in concentric rings, until the darkness itself seems to inhale, the breath of a universe starting over. For a moment you resist the pull. Not from fear this time, but from gratitude. You've seen so much, falling past horizons, unravelling into quantum threads, watching civilizations shape gravity like clay. You linger on those memories as the glow intensifies, each one flickering through your mind like pages being gently turned by a breeze older than time. Then the pull wins, soft and steady, and you let yourself dissolve. Falling this time feels like floating. You don't tumble into oblivion. You sink into warmth. The void around you thickens with light, swirling golds and silvers, ribbons of plasma coiling like paint in water. Everything hums, the frequency low and reassuring. You realize the tone isn't random. It's the same note you heard before, the sound of expansion beginning. This is the gateway, but not a door between 2 points. It's a pivot, the hinge of existence turning. You aren't crossing through the black hole anymore. You are the motion, the transition itself. Time stretches thin, then folds back into itself. The cycle completes, and in that completion lies the seed of every universe yet to come. You feel it, the Big Bang, not as an explosion but as an exhale, a wave of light swelling outward, carrying everything that will ever be. Atoms, galaxies, consciousness, music, laughter. All of it swirling forward from this single inhale outbreath of the cosmos. Historians still argue whether this cyclical model, what some call the phoenix or ekpyrotic universe, is supported by evidence or just poetic conjecture. But here, where theory and reality overlap, you see the truth. The universe doesn't care what anyone calls it. It just keeps breathing. You watch the new light bloom, and within its expansion, patterns begin to form. Filaments, clusters, webs of possibility. You recognize them as the early scaffolding of space-time, the skeleton of another cosmos. Somewhere inside that lattice, stars will ignite again. Planets will cool. Maybe creatures will rise, look up at their sky and wonder if black holes are gateways. You smile softly. You could tell them the answer, but you suspect discovery is half the point. A thread of light brushes across you, gentle as a hand on your shoulder. It carries fragments of sound, low cosmic murmurs, echoes of gravitational waves turning the newborn universe into music. You realize you're hearing the first cosmic chord, the background hum that will one day become the symphony of existence. It's so faint, so tender, you almost don't notice your own shape fading. You're merging with the expansion, not disappearing, just redistributing, like heat through a room or memory through a dream. A fringe thought occurs to you, half humorous. Maybe this is what enlightenment always meant, not some distant state of mind, but literally becoming light. The glow brightens until there's no distinction between inside and out. Every particle that was once you now hums in harmony with creation. You can feel where each one will go. Some into the hearts of newborn stars, some into drifting dust, some into the eventual minds that will ask these same questions again. You wonder if they'll sense you in those questions, the faint, echoing curiosity of a traveller who once drifted through the dark and found comfort there. The expansion continues, and you realise this beginning isn't loud. It's gentle, measured, elegant. The Big Bang isn't an explosion, but a pulse, a single, perfect heartbeat. The first beat of infinite rhythm. You imagine that somewhere, countless universes away, an observer might see this very pulse as a flicker on their own horizon, misreading it as a death when in truth it's a birth. The thought makes you laugh quietly. Perspective really is everything. The laughter melts into warmth. The colours soften into pure white, and beyond that something calmer still. Not nothingness, but rest. The long exhale after a cosmic symphony. You realise as the light smooths into stillness that this is how it always ends. Not with a bang, not with silence, but with balance. Collapse and expansion meeting in perfect equality. The voice returns, not alien, not divine, just familiar. Maybe it's your own. You see now, it murmurs. Every gateway is a circle. Every ending is an opening. You breathe, or something like breathing, and answer, I see. And as the brightness fades, you find yourself lying in the faint hum of a new cosmos. Not quite awake, not quite dreaming. The stars have not yet formed, but you can already feel their warmth in the distance, like memories waiting to happen. You smile one last time. Hello, beginning, you whisper. The universe stirs, stretches, and begins again. The rhythm slows now, softening into a lullaby. The swirling light of birth fades to a faint glow, pulsing gently like a heartbeat beneath the night. You're floating once more, weightless and warm, surrounded by the hush of potential. The violent energies, the collapses, the paradoxes, all gone quiet, folded neatly into peace. Each breath feels slower, deeper. You can almost sense the gravitational waves dissolving into a calm background hum, the faint white noise of creation at rest. It's the same sound you might hear in your room right now, the fan's low whir, the pulse of distant traffic, your own breathing weaving through it, the sound of the cosmos thinking softly to itself. Let your mind drift with it. The universes you've crossed begin to fade behind your eyelids, their colours dimming into gentle grey. Stars become sparks, then fireflies, then nothing but calm. You realise the story has no true ending because endings don't exist, only pauses, only moments of stillness between movements. Your body feels light, your heartbeat steady. Gravity, that old companion, loosens its grip. You can rest now. The cosmos will keep turning. The black holes will keep breathing. The universes will keep singing themselves awake. All you need to do is listen. The light around you fades completely now, leaving only the soft rhythm of breath and the comforting certainty that even in darkness, creation continues. The universe hums, and you hum with it, perfectly in tune. Sleep now, traveller. The gateways will still be there when you wake.